Hello and welcome back to WhatIfTimeWrap. Today we are doing something special. This is the final episode of our 12-episode alternate history series. And over the course of the past year, we have written, recorded, edited, animated, and published alternate history every single week. That is something that has never been done before. So we'd like to take a moment to thank all of you who watched the series throughout and supported us along the way. You made this possible. So now it is time to bring this experiment to an end. And today, as a final bonus for sticking with us until the very end, we gonna do a little wrap-up of the series and talk about the world that we created together and what lessons we can take from it. The series followed the consequences of a world where the United States never became a superpower. Specifically, we looked at what would happen if the US failed to industrialize during the Second Industrial Revolution. And then, each episode, we broke the timeline further and further, usually by a decade or so, seeing where it would eventually lead. And here is what we found. A world without a United States gave other powers the opportunity to rise. In this timeline, both China and Russia experienced rapid industrial growth in the late 19th century. By the turn of the century, they were the dominant world powers and controlled vast empires. The rest of the major powers, like Britain, France, and Germany, also industrialized to a degree, but were limited in their ability to project power outside of Europe. Japan was able to industrialize thanks to American exports and technology, becoming an economic powerhouse and regional hegemon in Asia. In this timeline, Latin America and most of Africa remained mostly agrarian, with only small pockets of industry. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire was reformed and modernized through the efforts of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. They would later be joined by a reformed Persia, which would go on to develop nuclear weapons during the Cold War, after being supplied by European powers. Speaking of which, Europe ended up playing a much larger role in this timeline. With no US involvement, European powers took control of colonies in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, setting up spheres of influence and competing for resources. However, this competition didn't lead to any major conflicts due to the threat of nuclear war. As for the United States itself, we explored two potential scenarios. In one timeline, the country simply remained divided into several separate states, maintaining their independence until today. In the other timeline, the country dissolved entirely, leading to Canada taking control of most of North America. Both scenarios led to similar results. However, with no major role for the United States on the world stage, instead, American culture, technology, and innovations leaked out of the country through the efforts of individuals and small companies, ultimately raising the standard of living and quality of life for people around the world. But perhaps the biggest surprise in this timeline is how things played out in the former Soviet Union. In our own timeline, the Soviet Union collapsed due to internal problems. But in this world, the USSR became a peaceful post-Cold War superpower. After the fall of communism across Europe, the Soviet Union was offered the chance to reform instead of dissolving. The Soviet leaders implemented market reforms, embraced religious freedom, and opened up relations with the West. The result was a period of rapid economic growth and stability, turning the Soviet Union into a democratic constitutional monarchy under the Romanov family. Meanwhile, China experienced a different sort of stability. By the late 21st century, the Chinese economy had become the dominant force in the world. While the Communist Party continued to repress political freedoms, they embraced free market economics, allowing the country to experience unprecedented growth and prosperity. This economic dominance allowed China to become a benevolent hegemon in Asia, controlling much of the region's trade and investment. Now, remember, throughout this series, we didn't change the basic nature of these countries. We didn't make the Soviet Union more ethical or China more free. We merely gave them a chance to become better versions of themselves within their own systems, and the results were interesting to say the least. So what does all this tell us about the world that we live in? Well, let's begin with lesson no. 1. Unity is power. We started this timeline with the United States. As we all know, the country was deeply divided in the late 19th century. In fact, just a century ago, the country came close to dissolving during the American Civil War. In this timeline, those divisions prevented the country from industrializing and becoming a superpower. Even if it had managed to unite somehow, it likely wouldn't have been able to compete with China and Russia due to their head start. Basically, the lack of unity kept America weak and vulnerable, and it left it unable to play a major role on the world stage. In our own world, this serves as a reminder for all countries that internal cooperation and unity are essential for success on the global stage. Lesson no. 2. Innovation drives influence. In this world, without an America to fill the void, China and Russia stepped up and became the dominant powers. In particular, China's economic prowess was a game changer. Over the years, China developed advanced technologies that allowed it to become a leader in important industries such as manufacturing and renewable energy. This gave China leverage over other countries and allowed it to become the dominant force in Asia. Similarly, Russia used its vast natural resources and scientific advancements to become a leader in space exploration and military technology. Again, this gave Russia leverage on the world stage and allowed it to compete with China for global dominance. Our world is a testament to the power of innovation and the importance of investing in research and development. If you want to be a major player on the world stage, lesson number 3. Diplomacy prevents chaos. The world of 2100 was a fragile one. Nuclear weapons were widespread, and the balance of power was precarious. Any misstep could have triggered a major conflict. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and the major powers managed to avoid a catastrophe. However, the situation was far from ideal. The threat of nuclear war always loomed in the background, and the world was essentially split into 3 spheres of influence. Each sphere was dominated by one of the 3 nuclear superpowers: China, Russia, or Iran. This meant that smaller countries had little autonomy and were forced to align themselves with one of the big 3. In addition, the rise of China and Russia created a major imbalance of power in Asia. This led to increased tensions with Japan, and the Korean Peninsula became a major flashpoint. Our world is a reminder of the importance of diplomacy and the need for countries to find ways to coexist peacefully. All in all, this alternate history taught us some important lessons about the world we live in and the importance of cooperation, innovation, and diplomacy. But it also got us thinking about what else might happen if we changed another major event in history. So we hope you enjoyed this little time warp through our alternate history. Thank you all once again for sticking with us through this entire series and helping us make this crazy experiment possible. And finally, if you've made it this far, we have a question for you. What is the next major historical event that you would like to see us explore in an alternate history series? Let us know down in the comments below. Who knows? Maybe we'll take your idea and run with it. But for now, it is time to say goodbye to this alternate history and get back to work on our regular programming. Until next time, this is WhatIf, and remember, keep thinking what if.